Wow, that's really hard to do. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba-ba. This is A Quiet Place. I've never been a big horror movie guy. Either I'm too chicken for some, or I'm just not impressed by some. That's just how it works. I mean, the first Halloween was great. I mean, I like some of those. I'm a fan of some of the Freddy Krueger movies, but horror doesn't usually impress me. Maybe 10% of it is stuff I'll like. But there's been this growing trend lately of really creepy, but also really entertaining and really intelligent horror movies that I can really get behind. The first one would be The Witch, and then last year we had Get Out. Now we got A Quiet Place. I'm liking where this is going, baby. I like this pattern, and I hope that they keep it up. A Quiet Place is about a family. I believe they're farmers because they live on what looks like a farm. And it's the year 2020, so it's not that far off. And in this parallel 2020, there are monsters that live on the planet Earth. They might be aliens, who knows. They came to Earth at some point and basically brought about the near extinction of humanity because these monsters are very dangerous. They're covered in thick armor, so you can't really shoot them or anything like that. And they've got very sharp claws, and they just kill anything they come across. And the monsters are blind, so the only way that they hunt is through very hypersensitive hearing. They're basically bloodhounds with hearing. Any noise will attract their attention, and they will run as fast as they can, and these things move fast, and they will attack the source of the noise and kill it if it's a living thing. So that's the world we live in. The world we live in has very few humans left, and the ones who are left have to tiptoe around and not make any noise at all. Even the smallest of noises will be heard by those things, so they have to be complete ghosts. They have sand, really soft sand, that they pour wherever they need to walk, so that when they walk, they don't make noise. And they all walk barefoot because shoes are noisy. It's an incredible world that they set up here, and the way that these people need to live, their new way of life, is just like astonishing, because you see so many little nuances, so many little details that they don't even zoom in on. There's a scene where they're sitting around the table and they're eating dinner. And, it's just a normal scene. There's nothing plot-wise going on. It's just showing you the daily lives of these people, and they're eating dinner. I think they're eating, like, fish and vegetables or something like that. They don't call attention to this. It's not like the camera zooms in and is like, look how cool this is. But it's just there for you to notice. But they don't have plates. They don't have china. And there's no cutlery on the table, because all of those things are noisy. So to eliminate that, they're basically, they'll put their food on like a leaf or something, like a big piece of lettuce, and then they'll wrap that up like in a pita bread, and then they'll just eat quietly and chew very quietly like that. So everything's a burrito, kind of, which means I will be perfectly okay in this world. I love burritos. The film is just full of little goodies like that. It's a true testament to the set design and everybody just involved in creating the home that this family lives in, because they really went all out with the details. These people don't have a phone or a TV set, because guess what? Those things make noise. There's a washer and dryer in the house left over from better times, but those things never get used. Emily Blunt is washing her clothes in a sink very quietly. Now, this is John Krasinski's directorial debut, I think. This is the first time he's ever directed a movie. He's obviously starring in it as well. And I think he created the premise and wrote pieces of the script. I can't remember off the top of my head. But what's cool about it is he gets to act alongside his wife, Emily Blunt. That's always fun. So they've already got the chemistry down. They've got their 3 children who are part of the family. They've got a small boy and a medium boy and a big girl. And she's not big, like tall or anything. She's just the eldest. I think she's like 12 or 13 or something. And the actress who plays the girl is actually deaf, and the character is deaf. And that adds another really cool layer to the story, in terms of this whole idea of sound and how sound affects the story. Because the movie is so quiet and you can literally hear a pin drop, every sound is cause for concern for both you, the audience, and the characters within the story. And when a sound goes off and everybody freaks out, the daughter is always the last one to know what's going on. Krasinski does this really cool thing where whenever the camera is focused on the girl, there's no audio at all. You don't hear Foley, you don't hear white noise. It's just completely dimmed down to almost imperceptible levels because she can't hear. And that was just a really cool little nuance. And they didn't have to do that, but they did it. And it's details like that that make movies like this so much fun. All I can say without spoiling, because there's a lot to spoil in this movie, is that it's one of those movies that literally never lets up for a second. It's not a long movie. I think it's like 95 minutes or something like that. It's weird to say, but it really only has 3 scenes. It has the prologue, and then it jumps forward in time a little bit, and it shows you a look at the everyday life of the family, just to show you what their life is like. And then it jumps forward a little bit more to the 3rd scene, and that 3rd scene all takes place on one day. From the moment that scene starts to the end of the film, this family is constantly in jeopardy. There is always at least one of those things, those creatures, nearby. You're going to want to hold your breath, but you won't be able to, because there's such a long period of time where it's just suspense, where it's just sheer like silence, and you know they're around. And you know the slightest noise will send them running. So that's really all I can say without spoiling anything, is that if you have a heart condition or a blood pressure problem, maybe lay off this movie, because it's really just relentless. It doesn't let up. When you get to that 3rd day, you're in an incessant state of fear and paranoia. That paranoia is always rational. Like, you're not going to be faked out a whole lot. Granted, there are a lot of jump scares in this movie that are unnecessary. That's one thing that I love about stuff like The Witch or Get Out. Jump scares are used barely ever, if at all. A Quiet Place does have a handful of moments, and these were for me the worst parts of the movie, that were just, the typical stupid jump scares where somebody I love is behind me and means me no harm, but they decide they're going to do this to get my attention. Like that kind of thing. Like, hey, you know what? Don't be an idiot and don't do that. Maybe just tap me lightly on the shoulder or whisper. Those are both viable options. That's literally it. I can't say more without going into spoilers, and I have to go into spoilers. It deserves better than for me to spoil it ahead of time. So if you don't want to know anything, please turn this off right now. Or just pause it, because that's better for my algorithm. Hey-oh! YouTube talk! Most of what we see in the trailer, that whole scene with the little boy holding the rocket ship and they're crossing the bridge, and then he presses the toy and it makes a noise and everybody freaks out. That's all in the prologue. What I loved, what really caught me off guard, because, when you watch that scene in the movie, you're like, okay, I've seen this in the trailer, 10 times. I know what's going to happen. He's going to press the thing and everybody's going to freak out and the dad's going to grab him and they're going to have to run and stuff. But that trailer really pulled the wool over our eyes, because they throw us for a loop. When we get to that part in the prologue where the kid presses the rocket ship and, it makes a noise and everybody's scared, John Krasinski's running, one of those creatures is coming through the trees. The monster dives through the trees, grabs the little boy, and kills him like that. And the scene ends. And we cut to our opening titles. And that's our prologue. I freaking loved that. I was so thrilled to be caught off guard by a moment I wasn't expecting to be caught off guard by. When they show you this in the trailer, you expect, here it's going to lead into a big chase scene and they're going to run through the woods and it's going to be scary and jump scares are going to happen. Nah. Krasinski runs his ass across that bridge and he's like, I gotta go get my son. But you know what? He's not getting his son. His son is done. His son should, don't press rocket ship buttons when there's friggin' sound animals around. That's just common sense. That the kid had it coming. So I'm sorry to say. So that kid is gone. Their youngest child is gone before the prologue of the movie. It's not unnecessary violence either. It's not just needless violence against a small child. That's not how I saw it. I saw it as, that's their way of saying to us, we're not fooling around. This isn't going to be like some lovey-dovey sapfest where the kids always get out okay because they're kids and they're our future. No. This is real danger. And if a kid gets in the way of one of those things, sayonara. That's it. They're done. All of a sudden, boom, we have stakes. I feel that if that scene had ended with just, no, I'm going to grab the kid and we're going to get away by running, there's less stakes. There's still stakes, but the kid getting taken out by the monster, boom. That's stakes, baby. Now I'm like, okay, anything can happen. And then we jump ahead to the second day in the life of this family. Emily Blunt's character, which, by the way, I should mention, we never hear anybody's name being spoken, which I thought was really cool. Obviously, there's not a lot of dialogue, but even when there is little bits of dialogue, you never hear a name being spoken, which that was a really neat little touch. Like, they didn't have to do that. It didn't really add or take away from anything, but it was just kind of cool. If you're eagle-eyed enough, you can see there's an establishing shot of their farm, and you can see they have a mailbox that says Abbott on it. So I'm assuming their last name is Abbott, unless they're squatting in this farmhouse, unless, that's not their real house, but they're squatting there now because, hey, civilization's gone. So we carry on day 2 of what I'm assuming is the Abbott family's life. And now Emily Blunt is pregnant. And that opens up a whole other can of worms now, because it's like, oh my God, why did she get pregnant? Why did they let this happen? Loot some condoms from a drugstore or something, because now, two things that are not quiet. Babies and labor. Not known to be the most hushed of things. So right away, it's like a ticking time bomb. Because she's showing this thing's due fairly soon. You can feel the weight of that pressing on the family. You can feel it. Like, this is a ticking clock ready to go off. And once this baby comes, we're effed in the A. Like, how are we going to deal with this? I'm not even going to spoil in the spoiler section how they deal with it. But you saw snippets of it in the trailer with a scene involving a bathtub. And that scene might be one of the scariest, most intense things I've seen in a long ass time. I'm a man. I'm a person who does not know what labor pain feels like. But if you are a woman who has had a child, and if you have ever been brave enough to have a child without any sort of local anesthetic, you'll probably get even more freaked out by the scene than I did. It's so uncomfortable to watch. And, you know, I found myself just kind of like grabbing my shirt and just like squeezing my collar and like, just somebody help her. Everything just snowballs. It's just a snowball of shit going wrong, and this poor family has to deal with it. There's a really great moment where John Krasinski's taking the son hunting, or not hunting, but fishing. They go fishing by a river to catch their dinner, and there's a waterfall, pretty big one. John Krasinski takes the boy and up onto the cliff face, and they sit pretty much right behind the waterfall. He tells the boy, he starts speaking, and he's like, hey, we're okay. We can talk. We're going to be okay because the waterfall is louder than we are. So as long as there's something around that makes more noise than we are, they're not going to hear us. And so they can finally speak in regular voices and talk to each other. And it's the only scene in the movie, if I'm not mistaken, where people are actually using full volume. Otherwise, it's sign language or whispering. And then they make a great callback to that waterfall later on, where they take the logic of that. They take the logic of, you know, a waterfall makes a lot of noise, so if I'm behind it, I can make noise and they won't hear me. And they do it in a really creative way. And again, I don't even want to spoil that here because it's so friggin' cool. It ends up saving a character's life. Basically, that logic of get behind the falling water saves a character's life in a way that you don't expect. Like I said, it's not a traditional waterfall kind of thing, but it's so cool and it makes perfect sense. And the existence of it is the blossom from a seed planted in an earlier scene. What a seamless, tight screenplay from start to finish. Like, it really just, it's a domino effect. Like, one thing happens and then there's one thing I want to mention. When you've seen the movie, you might appreciate this. There's a scene where Emily Blunt is walking up the stairs and she's carrying something and it gets caught on a nail, and when she pulls it, the nail sticks up out of the stair, and, you know, we're thinking, oh shit, that's bad, somebody's gonna step on that nail. And eventually Emily does step on the nail. She comes back down the stairs and she steps on it. And, you know, she's like, I can't scream. So we get that moment where it's like somebody stepped on it. But I kept freaking out because she never moves the nail. You know, she never looks down and says, oh, there's that thing I stepped in. I'm going to get rid of it so that, you know, it doesn't hurt anybody else. No, that nail is constantly there for the rest of the movie, just sticking out of the stairs, and they keep showing it. As time goes on, the other characters start going up and down the stairs in a very frenzied manner. The movie's trying to get me to pay attention to, like, one of these monsters that's circling the farm or what have you. And I just keep sitting there thinking, like, can somebody please move that nail? Like, I'm getting nervous here. I'm anxious because I keep staring at that nail and like somebody else is going to step on it. Please move the nail. I don't think the nail ever got moved. It's still there. God bless that nail. It is the nail that will not die. Now, John Krasinski's character has a collection of newspaper clippings. They serve as a great way to give the audience a vague idea of how this invasion went down, and that, you know, these creatures just appeared suddenly, and people, you know, the newspapers are freaking out and saying like, oh, it's the end of days, they're angels of death. And he's got like a whiteboard where he's writing down like, okay, there's 3 that have been confirmed in the area. What are their weaknesses? How do I kill them? They have too much armor, blah, blah, blah. Eventually they figure out there is a weakness that these things have, and it's the same as their strength, and it is sound, a particular frequency of sound that drives them crazy. And the creatures, I gotta mention, have a great design. They're kind of like Cloverfield-y, but they have all these plates of armor on their head that are sort of attached loosely. They flip up and down. It's a disturbing looking thing, man. But the family finds out that a certain frequency of sound will irritate their very sensitive ears enough to make their armor kind of go sporadically up and down, revealing the soft pink flesh underneath that can then be taken out with a shotgun. But getting that sound close enough to one of these beasts to actually do some damage is a hazardous thing unto itself. And I don't even want to spoil that because it's so much fun. You know what? I'm going to end this video right here. See the movie. You won't be disappointed. I definitely hope that this just continues and we get more of these really creative and smart and interesting horror movies that make us think while entertaining us. So that has been A Quiet Place. That's Thumb Together. I'm Andrew Fantasia. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, adios.